Our next speaker is Pranav Sharma, who is a founding partner of Woodstock. And he's going to be talking about framing the future of Web3.
Hi everyone. Now this is a forum wherein, let's say, I just thought probably I'll share more details. But since, we are, let's say, few of us, let me see if I can make this interactive and share a perspective, before I invite, some of my colleagues on stage. So we'll have a fireside chat wherein, let's say, we'll also, do coverage around what's happening on the development side in India, globally, in terms of, developer base, etc., which will be very interesting for you to understand, what's going on. We also have a very special guest. He's a co-founder of WazirX, which is by default the largest crypto exchange in India. And he also is starting something very interesting in gaming space. So that is something which will also intrigue you further. So let me, without much ado, share a little bit of a context here. So at Woodstock, we are one of the largest, we are actually the largest and the oldest, blockchain fund that emerged out of India. And we have been investing into this space for the past 3 years now. Now you may be asking that, why India is really important and why this really matters. Now the point is very simple, that India has the largest English-speaking developer base. That means, which is the new oil of, Web 3.0 as we call it, is essentially sitting out of India. And essentially this is going to, in many ways, create the next unicorns and the decacons, etc. over a span of time. There's another thing which I also want to mention to you in terms of how many of you have been in India in the past. If you can literally show hands. So I see 3-4 of you. And I'm sure all of you will agree that India is very messy, very chaotic, right? But it is a very plural society, and in many ways it also represents the humanity in many ways. So when you look at Web 3.0, it is very chaotic. I don't know how many of you agree with me whether it is chaotic or not. Is Web 3 very simple, very easy, very straightforward, or is it chaotic? It's chaotic, right? In many ways, India is also a very plural society, extremely chaotic, etc. And as a fund, we have built deep roots in India, and our intention is to further build, deeper roots in US as well. So we also further, extended our fund scope to, sort of scale this up. And we are in the fund 2 of our journey. So this is very broadly in terms of, what we are doing at a fund house level. For those of you who are from US, you will experience that, essentially Woodstock as a name must be very familiar to you. And it draws its inspiration from the same festival you are thinking about, which was supposed to be a very small gathering, and it just blew up into a movement. And blockchain also was supposed to be a very simple white paper, and it actually became essentially a movement where a lot of people are finding expression. So when the topic is about framing Web 3.0, it is about all of these complex amalgamation of various technologies and various people coming from various walks of life, coming together and seeing that how they can find expression and inclusion on a massive scale. And that is the context I just want to set before I invite other folks who can come in and we can have a little bit of a conversation there. And so Devesh, if I may request probably Mayur to come in. So here the reason I wanted to introduce Mayur to you is that I met Mayur almost like 1.5-2 years back. And the first conversation I had, I was like, I want to invest in you. And I would say that the entire journey was because the kind of inspiration that he got in terms of building decentralized storage, focused on privacy. So when you look at his t-shirt, it says that if you want to talk privacy, talk to me, right? And of course, it has multiple connotations, which I'll leave to him. But the thing is that, the interesting part is that sitting in India, and since I was sharing the Indian context, large amount of developer base, but the product innovation has been very limited in India. And in that context, Mayur has been that founder of Indian origin who has taken this very complex problem. And I just want to share here is that as a fund that we invested into them very early on, we started a conversation with them, but Polygon has deeply backed them. Almost every large fund in India reached out to us that who is Mayur and what is the problem they're solving. So I'm not trying to market him because I don't think he's raising funds anymore. But the intention is that a lot of serious people reached out that if this is a problem which is being solved in India, we see this as an early sign that a lot of interesting problems over a span of time will be solved. So can you please introduce us to founders like Mayur? So I wanted to share this preamble as to who he is from my lens. And then eventually, Mayur, maybe you can share your perspective in terms of how your journey actually began in Web 3.0 and how your journey has been so far.
Yeah, thanks so much, Pranav. Great being here. Hello, everybody. Our journey actually started back in 2018. That's when blockchains and crypto actually got introduced in India. We were slightly behind the curve. But the fantastic thing for especially like a country like India, actually a lot of developing nations in general, is that for the first time in history, we have the same access to information and technology as the West does. I think this has largely led to a lot of innovation, whether it's coming out of Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and that's the fantastic thing about it. And this has afforded people like us the opportunity to actually build something truly innovative on the product side. So yeah. And probably just to talk a bit about what we do at Arcana is we help developers build more secure, privacy-preserving applications. One of the primary use cases is actually in NFTs. So the gentleman who was here just before we got on was talking about how you could buy the Picasso and you own the NFT to the Picasso and you also own the original Picasso. But how do you actually own the original Picasso? That's very likely going to be held in some sort of stronghold, warehouse, some service that actually lets you do this, or it's sitting in your home. That's the only real way you really own that. So when it comes to an NFT, we have the same problem where you own, say for example, a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape. You own the NFT, but the underlying asset, the JPEG itself, just sits on IPFS or wherever, and you don't really own that. Everyone has access to it, right? There's this whole notion of right-click and save. And we actually bring security and privacy to the underlying asset itself that the NFT describes. And this is something that we hope to do with whether it's games, whether it's NFT marketplaces. This will actually go a long way in empowering creators.
Fantastic. So I think the context here is privacy, and I think the larger focus in India, which is about creating those next product ideas and creating the possibility wherein, let's say, we can put India on the map. So I just want to acknowledge Mayur on this. Let me also invite Ivan. So I don't think he requires any introduction. So I would say in many ways, when I got into the blockchain space, I was seeking content which would actually give me a lot of clarity in very simple language. And in that context, whenever I used to look at the content, I could find only him. So a lot of you who have been looking at understanding and getting demystified around blockchain space, you would identify this young, handsome man. So I just want to put things into perspective here is that he did not stop there. He landed up focusing a lot more on building stuff. He saw a massive problem that essentially the system was very scattered, if I may put it across, and he wanted to put it all together by creating a space where the developers can very systematically engage with the technology. I'll not take much of sheen from his side, but I will let Ivan share in terms of at Morales and overall in terms of the vision that you have. What are you trying to build and what really propels you forward?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to everyone who is here watching us. So exactly, we build Morales, and our vision is to make Web3 as simple as Web2 for developers. Because if I want to build a website or a mobile app or something in Web2, I can have a prototype tonight because there are tools, SDK, frameworks, libraries. It's so easy to build. In Web3, before we started, it was a whole complicated process to find a node provider, to index the blockchain, run the graph. I mean, these are all great technologies, but it requires a whole backend team to make sense of and run and build. So we are developers. So our whole founding team are developers. So we thought, why is there no simple tool that you can use in order to log in users, get their transactions, get real-time alerts when they transact online? Why isn't there a tool that can do it cross-chain? Why isn't there a tool that also can plug and play into game engines, into different web frameworks? Why do I have to build so much myself if I want to build something? So that's where we started, and we thought about our favorite Web 2 tools that we've used all the time, and we tried to mimic that as much as possible and make it Web 3. So that's how we started, and it's been growing pretty fast. We're over 100,000 developers that use us and build their dApps using Moralis infrastructure. And yeah, with Woodstock support, it's been a good journey.
Fantastic. So that, basically is a great introduction. So I think a lot of people who complain that in Web3 there is very limited traction, I think just, highlight the number that 100,000 developers are actually using a tool that has been built by Moralis, right? I just want to introduce, one more friend of mine. Maybe if you can help, invite, Siddharth as well. So, so Siddharth, please come on stage, and be here. So Siddharth is a dear friend, and he's also the co-founder of WazirX. And let me put things into perspective. For a lot of you who are not Indians and who don't know that what is WazirX and what is the exchange, WazirX was acquired by Binance. That is what, claimed the highlight. But I think a lot of people who don't know what WazirX did was they essentially created the liquidity pool for, let's say, USDT INR pair. And I have not known many people in the world, probably Sam of FTX is one person, CZ of Binance is another person, who have actually created, who have been able to manage to create a large pool of liquidity out there. So I think in many ways the credit for tinkering and building that liquidity pool in a massive and complex country like India, which was the context that we started the conversation with, in many ways goes to this gentleman who has been a founder along with Nishal of WazirX. I also want to put into spotlight that he's focusing a lot more on the gaming space in India. He sees that the next, of course, the numbers also sort of align with this, that gaming is growing extremely fast in India. And India is the fastest growing market in the world in gaming space. So there's going to be a massive demand for inventory of gaming, AAA games, classic games, game guilds, distribution, whatnots, everything. So probably, Siddharth, over to you in terms of sharing that, what is really exciting about gaming and why Tegro?
Yeah, I think before Tegro, a lot of people need to understand, back in 2017 to 18, those times, the Bitcoin dominance fell from 70% to 37%. And majority of that gap was filled by alt markets, right? So the altcoins, there were new projects that was coming in. But now, this time, the market has expanded furthermore. Today, we are at about 47%, and hopefully, we will have the dominance falling to 22%. What we are seeing right now is there is a new asset class that is coming into this whole crypto space, which is the next big investable asset class, which is actually the game asset class, right? The game, whatever the games that you play, there are assets that is there within the game, and that is becoming the next big asset class. We have already seen Axie and all the other games that has sort of attracted a lot of fund, a lot of money into these marketplaces. But definitely, what they suffer today is the sustainability, economics, and things around that. But having said that, keeping that aside, there's a lot of a value that these game asset class creates, because for the fact that these are real use cases of these assets. There are utility use cases. So when you play the game, you need to use these assets. For example, if you're using bullet, you need to consume that bullet within the game, to play the game. Or if you're using water, you need to consume the water to play, certain part of the game. So essentially, there's a high frequency transactions that is happening today. The game market in general, outside crypto, has already touched a $200 billion revenue, which is almost close to $1.2 trillion market. We believe this whole Web3 coming into play, and creating a new genre of games could actually expand this market from 1.2 trillion to $3 trillion market. And that is the opportunity that, we are very early in this game. But just like how in 2015 we were talking about altcoins, Ethereum, we were very small. But same sort of journeys now we can see. But this time with a more high utility, asset class. And that is where, it's very exciting to be in, right? And that's the space that I'm also very excited to be. Starting with having a game-specific, a unique marketplace for game assets, bounty markets where people can get paid to play games to, create more assets for the investors. So these are like the ecosystem that had to be built on to help games get better. Again, the part of, helping better economics for games. We are open sourcing certain economic models which a lot of Web2 game developers don't understand. You know, how do you build a marketplace not for the first sell, that is the shop sell, right? You need to create a marketplace for tertiary and so on for more. Primarily that the asset should have its value season after season, because in the traditional Web2 games, the moment one season is over, there's no value of the asset, right? So there's a lot of mindset change that has to be done, and we are sort of helping everybody, you know, game designers and everybody, to build better games and ultimately work on this game asset class to make this as a good place to be for everybody else to be participating. So that is what Tegro is all about. Tegro is building a marketplace for game assets as well as the bounty marketplace that we are building.
Fantastic. So let's say if I can summarize, let's say three of you. So when I look at Ivan, I look at developers as a keyword, right? When I look at you, Mayur, I look at privacy as a keyword, and when I look at you, I look at liquidity in your previous life, but gaming in your current life. And all the three are very powerful spaces. In many ways, they also represent the themes that are very attractive to investors, and they're looking at investing into this space, etc. So my question is actually twofold. So probably I'll ask the first question, is that how do you see that, people building different things in Web 3.0, how do they land up collaborating so that they create the next big possibility? Because that is what Web 3.0 is all about, right? So how do you as individuals are able to take out time from your build mode to actually take space or create time to collaborate a lot more? So probably this is a question to three of you in any sequence.
Yeah, I can start. The good thing with Web3 is that it's interoperable and interconnected by default. It's on the technological level very much so, but also on a personal level. Everyone that we meet normally is very collaborative. They want to integrate, they want to see what's possible together. This industry by design is not that competitive. Even though somebody may do similar things, it's so early on, it's so many things to do, so many things to accomplish, so many different blockchains, L2, side chains, that it's huge. So the only way that we can serve this market the best and succeed is by collaborating, integrating, and building together. So I think we kind of have it by design in this industry. It's collaborative by design.
Yeah, I think Chris Dixon said it best recently, where he said that composability and collaboration actually works like compound interest, and that's really the way that you multiply value across all stakeholders. So yeah, and of course it's a very collaborative space, very open. Yeah.
I think both of them literally spoke all the things that I wanted to say, but then it's very real, right? Everybody knows some knowledge, has attained something about Web3, and the only way to build and align towards is that everybody is trying to create the existence of Web3, right? It's success for me if Web3 exists tomorrow, right? And that is a success that everybody else also wants it, and that's probably one of the reasons that everybody is like sort of collaborating together, trying to trying to bring in expertise in terms of, say, how funding happens, or how market works, how tech works, privacy, and every other thing, right? And I think this is where it's a great space to be. The other day we were just talking about it. There's a lot of white space where there's no competition, right? It's more collaboration, and anybody who's being part of it is like simply absorbed as like a part of a family and work together. So I think that's one key thing.
So I think what I'm hearing very consistently is that this is collaborative space, and people who come in this space by mindset are very collaborative, and essentially even their business models, as Ivan pointed out, has APIs and various other technological endpoints and touch points, so that you can collaborate very effectively. Extremely well said. So then I will sort of turn the heat by asking the question that what do you see is the end state of Web 3.0?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
What is the end?
Don't get the sound here.
Sorry, what is the end state of Web 3.0?
The end state of the Web3 market? Well, the end state is that we have ownership online, because we are spending more and more time online. Our kids are already now, they're in TikTok, they're fully addicted. It's gonna just be more and more online. And the big question is, do we have ownership online or we don't? Do we have ownership in this virtual environment that we're all entering or not? So the end game for Web3 is that we have ownership of assets, digital assets embedded in these virtual digital experiences, without you noticing the complexity of it, without you noticing the Web3 frictions. I would say that's the, if we are to summarize Web3 with one word, it's ownership, it's digital ownership.
No, I agree 100%. It's like how the evolution has been, like Web 1 was mainly you read from a server, Web 2 was you read and now you can contribute, like you can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, and Web 3 will very rightly be read, write and own. So these are the three things that you'd all be able to do. And but yeah, the other important thing that I personally also feel, I think Ivan just quickly touched upon it, is the end state is when the user doesn't know that there is a blockchain in the backend, and he's using it just as trivially as he uses Web 2 today. This is already possible with apps building on Morales, and hopefully we'll get to that point soon.
I'm going to go a little more philosophical on this. I think humans have been evolving for like long time, starting with village, going to township, then starting a country. Now we are just expanding ourselves. And ever since the birth of internet, we have now started living in a virtual world, right? There's no definition to it. We are spending time, we are doing business. Me myself have been spending a lot of time on the virtual world than this. But as and when we are constructing this virtual world, we started with knowledge share, Web 1, Web 2, many other things. What is now we are building is the financial layer within this. And to me, what it looks like is as we are expanding from country to country, we are now sort of creating this super country. I don't know what to call this. We call this metaverse or whatever. But this is that formation of that super country where everything can now exist end to end, where you don't have to go back to physical world for many more things. So that's just my take on how things are evolving.
I think fantastic take from all three of you, and giving very different perspective based upon your experiences. So as I dialed up the question, let me also see if I can more segment the questions now. So now the spotlight is on you, Ivan. So let's say you're focusing on bringing probably the next million developers, right, onto blockchain. So how many? Now the thing is that one set of people are people who have trained themselves to become developers, like they can do Java programming, C++ programming, Rust programming, etc. And then there are many people, let's say millions of young aspirants who are wanting to learn these skills, and seems that this is the only knowledge which will help them to succeed and grow and monetize over the longer time frame. So how do you see this white space problem to be solved? Because everyone is looking at this red ocean strategy of all the chains right now, whether you look at Solana or Elrond or Polkadot, everyone is just going after the same developer base right now, which is, so how is Morales looking at creating, addressing this white space?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we think that developers should not care about the different blockchains. They should not connect to this node or that node. It should all be abstracted away. If I'm a developer, I don't care if it's Intel, AMD, ARM chip. I'm using JavaScript, or I'm using Java in order to build my desktop app or web app. So my vision for the blockchain's future of development is that you don't care whether it's ETH, Polkadot, Solana. Just like maybe there's a new blockchain tomorrow, I shouldn't care. I should just build and it works cross-chain. Just like if I build something and then there is a new screen, there is a new kind of CPU, GPU, I as a developer, I don't care about that. So that's what I think will happen to blockchain as well long term, and it has to happen if we are to reach real mass adoption, because developers cannot spend time choosing blockchains. They cannot risk picking the wrong chain because it's capital invested, it's talent invested. We should remove that risk from their decision making. So that's how I see it. Yeah.
So Ivan, maybe I'll just follow through with a very controversial question right now. Is that a lot of money has been poured into various blockchain and scaling solutions. How do you see this, converging? Because essentially what you're seeing is that the future is more centered around the founder and around the developer, while right now it has been centered a lot more on chains, and they're all having a large war chest.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. The sound was not good.
So sorry about it.
No problem.
So basically right now the money has been raised by various chains, like 200 million, 500 million, whatnots. Yeah. So the entire world is right now centered around these chains, and this is where the VCs are also investing, right?
Yeah.
So, and you are talking about a developer or a founder-centric world. So how do you see that this entire capital or even the value will flow towards developer and applications?
Well, it's all about the fact that if we have a cross-chain ecosystem, it's growing the pie. Just like we were discussing previously about competition versus collaboration, if it's cross-chain, we share liquidity, we share users, we become bigger together. And the reason why I think this industry is so collaborative is because we're the underdog in many regards. Just before this talk, we spoke about new regulation, new rules, this and that. We're the underdog. So if we can collaborate, we will grow the pie. And I think that everyone who has done business in the past or been active and building something, you understand that it's better that we all share a bigger pie than we try to compete for the same for the same resources and be hostile. So we have to grow it together. Yeah.
So probably a sneak peek here is that, if you want to understand which is the chain which is getting most amount of traction at a very early stage, this is the man to go to. He will let you know, in hush tone that Solana is something which is getting a lot of traction and not Polkadot. I'm just saying that it may be vice versa as well. So now Mayur, over to you. Now privacy is definitely a buzzword. ZK snarks, people are just talking about these things, and definitely it is getting a lot of spotlight. Regulators love it in one way and they hate it in another way. They love it because essentially a lot of these transactions which are supposed to be not revealed in public domain would not be revealed in public domain. And on the other hand, they are going to be hating it because the transactions which should be revealed in public domain and also in private domain will also be concealed. So how do you reconcile with privacy as an objective at Arcana, and how are you looking at this in terms of the larger macro trend which is happening around privacy globally?
Yeah, globally speaking, I think everyone's doubling down on privacy. We have governments all over the world wanting to do their own version of GDPR. We have America, we have India, we have all of these developing nations wanting to do this. We are seeing corporations like Apple doubling down on privacy requirements for apps that list on the App Store. And we are also seeing users also wanting to align with more privacy preserving apps, like WhatsApp tried to change the privacy policy, and people just suddenly started installing Signal, Telegram, what have you, right? So that signal is there, the pressure is starting from all corners. And users especially are becoming wise to the idea that, aligning their interests with applications that actually, will help preserve their privacy is actually something worthwhile doing. And this is our bet, that users want this. Very pragmatically speaking, developers will want this and will need to do this, and because of all the pressure from other quarters. And this is something that's an eventuality. Like storing unencrypted data will be illegal in the future. That's how I look at it.
Wow.
And yeah, so we just want to make it super easy for devs to build these kinds of applications, and for the user just to be rest assured that their data is secure, and they now can decide what happens with that data, who gets access to that data, and who shouldn't. And I think it sounds like a lot of responsibility, but I think when done correctly, I think that's evolution from where we are today.
So basically what Mayur is sharing is that there's a larger macro trend around privacy, wherein privacy is suddenly gaining a lot of ground because of changing regulations. GDPR is one aspect, but every country has their own privacy regulations. And of course, what happened with Facebook and the Senate conversations, etc., I'm sure a lot of you followed this, has been, and Cambridge Analytica, etc., has put privacy into spotlight. And definitely when you combine privacy with decentralization, then the level of ownership that you can give to an individual for the data and for ability for them to interact, in peer-to-peer or one-to-many is phenomenal. So I think I also align with the larger trend. But if I may ask a question, that how big you see, okay, there was a point at which AI was a large trend and artificial intelligence became embedded technology. Nobody speaks about the value that is brought by artificial intelligence. What do you see as privacy? Do you think privacy will become a hygiene, or will it, also land up, attracting a lot of value over a span of time?
I think if it becomes hygiene, we'd be very happy. If it's something that people don't even need to talk about, then I think we would have achieved our objectives. And I think that's the place that we hope everything moves to, where it's just by default, it's by design, and it's not something that, it's not a feature that people try and build in products. It's just something that comes very naturally. Like, for example, if you want someone to access your app, you want to put like this button that allows them to log in with their Gmail. That almost comes naturally because you want to give someone entry, you want to learn about this user. And similarly, I think, some of these things just should be, just basic hygiene. This should just exist.
Got it. So here now, I think Siddharth, over to you, Siddharth. So thank you, Mayur, for this. So Siddharth, gaming and metaverse, I mean, we can see various logos and posters, all around us, is extremely hot right now. And you did, go in a lot of detail that essentially Tegro is looking at disrupting and creating that kind of framework, right? So my question here is that, do you see that gaming is a doorway into metaverse, or essentially that, of course, metaverse will have different connotations. A lot of people speak about multiverse. Or is it going to be that, essentially the metaverse is going to collapse into gaming, which essentially is what's happening and what is creating what?
When we talk about metaverse, right, it already exists in the gaming world. Even if you go back to playing Counter-Strike or PUBG or Fortnite, you're essentially sharing a space with your friends on the game, in the game, playing real time and almost sharing your metaverse. And usually games, we have seen that in past, right? Games are usually the trendsetters in terms of the consumer products that we talk about. A lot of things that happen within game industry usually gets adopted in the consumer space. Many things, right? Even for the fact that the tokenization, having an in-game token is very native to game in general. So I think it's more of expansion of how game can lead another new trend with the Web3 on top of it, and how people interact, spend time, earn within this ecosystem. If these balances have been done really well, then I think the next big consumer product will actually adopt these learnings and bring it to the consumer side of things. And when I say consumer, this would be probably more of generalistic metaverse or any other Web3 products that we can think about. But you need a trend leader, and usually trend leaders are these gaming industries, which actually bring a lot more consumer behavior and fine tune that, which gets consumed into the consumer space.
And so if I can just follow through Siddharth on this, do you think the infrastructure right now in the gaming space is ready for all the hype and all the capital which is flowing into this, or you see that this is going to take at least 2 to 3 years for us to get there?
So there are multiple breakdowns to that, right? One, as such, the game by itself. Today, games are becoming even more immersive. When you play the game, it looks so realistic, everything around it. What Web3 is doing is making it even more real from an economic point of view, right? It's where what you do in the game can impact you outside the game financially. So this is the second part of what is happening. But from the Web3 layering point of view, there is still a lot more gap, because today's blockchains cannot do high TPS, the kind of TPS that is needed within to play the game. So there is a balance between centralization and decentralization. But the overall objective of the Web3 games are right now being achieved with these sort of disadvantages what is there today. I think going forward, these things will just get better, and we can see more and more richer games coming on board. I think more than richer games, more possibilities on the economic layer once these blockchain becomes far more faster to support gaming in general.
And Siddharth, maybe one question on this is that, what is your view on gamification of the real world?
To me, the real world itself is gamified. We are all, this is just my thought, we all following carrots, we are all following doing things, some with passion, some for money, some for everything else. So I think the behavior in the metaverse won't going to change because people are same. Or the behavior even in the gaming is not going to change because people are same. We are just going to replicate that into more of a virtual world and create an economy where there is an alignment between all of us, and there is growth for each one of us. So that's basically the economy in general.
So now three of you spoke very passionately about your respective spaces, about your respective startups. Maybe the most interesting question that the audience may have is, what about the markets? Because essentially they want to figure out a way to make money as well, right? So what is your verdict on the market? There's a lot of build activity which is happening, as you must have realized from their expositions and their sharings that you must have heard here. But what is your view on the market? Do you think the market is in consolidation mode? I'm not expecting a financial advice here. Even we also don't give as a fund. But the question is that, do you see that this consolidation phase will be over as a lot of build activities happening and we'll be on a J curve, like a F16 up? Or is it going to be like sideways for a long period of time because a lot more build has to happen?
Well, personally, I'm very bullish because crypto has proven itself. Just in 2017, it was a big question mark. Is this whole industry a big scam or not? Many people were wondering, but now it's clear that it's here to stay. We have a lot of capital, of course, we have a lot of use cases. So this industry today has proven itself. Of course, there are up and downs and there are cycles in the market, but the most important thing we can do, in my opinion, is to build in the space. That's the biggest opportunity. Can Bitcoin do a 10x? Probably. Can some altcoin do a 100x? Probably, but the biggest return is always going to be if we build something. I mean, that's also the most fun, it's the most engaging. So yeah, I recommend everyone to join a crypto startup or start your own. Do something. Don't just click buttons, buy, sell, buy, sell. It's very unproductive, really, and it's better to build.
I'm not a trader, I'm a horrible trader, so there's definitely no financial advice coming from me. Except for the fact that I'm very bullish also, and I think this time is definitely different because I think crypto has found product market fit in certain areas, and now it's about value generation in other areas. I believe that the internet is going to be kind of redesigned to be more decentralized, and there's going to be a whole new amount of value that's now going to be generated, and people are going to slowly, when it becomes easier for everyone to actually use it and use it well, they're actually going to start migrating over to privacy preserving, more decentralized, trustless applications, and that's when we'll really start to see sustainable value. So we'll have better baselines, I guess, for price.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure the audience, but most of you guys would have joined the whole crypto, bandwagon probably, last 2 years, right? But there are folks who've been there for a couple of years, and what we have seen, right? Obviously, there are cycles, there are down and up, everything around it. But during the bear time is when a lot of good products are being built. During the bear time or when the consolidation, whatever you want to call it, right, is a time where a lot more people learn more about it. And what we have seen is in last 2-3 years, there are people who have just been traders to be, like he said, joining a startup and actually contributing them in the project in terms of growth. And that is actually the biggest, bullish signal for all of you guys. Rather than trading, the best way to, increase your whatever, like portfolio or however, is to actually use build power and, either do it yourself or, do amazing teams, join any of the amazing teams and be part of it in any way. People think you have to code to be a part of the project, but there are so many non-tech things that is there. Compliance, there is marketing, there is writing, and editorial, so many things that is there. You just approach, tell them this is what I do and I would like to be part of your project, and they will take you in, and that's how you grow your portfolio. I think that's one of the takeaway from all of you.
Fantastic. So basically the consistent perspective from all the three is build to earn. So I think these are the words I'll leave, all of you behind with. Any last words?
Well, thanks a lot for organizing this. It was very engaging questions, and thanks a lot everyone for watching, and hope to meet all of you here in the conference.
Absolutely, and I would say a special thanks to Devesh and Abhinav from the team for organizing this. Irina, I don't see her anywhere else, here, but let's say she has been also supportive in terms of getting us here on stage and giving this possibility. Looking forward to have a chat, and you can meet all of these three amazing people at any point in time, today, tomorrow, or whenever, So thank you very much for being a very patient audience. Looking forward to see you soon.
Thanks guys.